What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to see that daily Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Hit the notification bell as well if you want to get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. Now, in this video today, I'm going to be talking about one question. I want your guys' help in the comment section down below. Can the Ravens fix their problems this season? Now, this is not a statement of can they fix the problems that are happening this season. This is a can they fix their problems during the season? Can they have them solved so that they can maybe go on to the postseason, have a postseason run, and win the Super Bowl? Okay, that's the topic of the video. It's not can they fix the problems that they're having this season, because anyone can fix your problems. Just depends on how long it's going to take. This is a time-sensitive issue. Okay, so, can they fix their roster? No, maybe you add Odell. That's the only possible thing you can get to adding to wide receivers. That's not something that can be fixed. So that's not the focus of today's video. Another thing, you guys can see the microphone right here. I just got a new microphone. I'm working on I've got a lot of new equipment that is coming in. Shout out to Black Friday for all the deals. So I'm working on that. You guys have seen the camera's been different recently. I changed it back because I was switching from, if you guys know, I was using an old PC to record. I got a MacBook. I've been editing on that. But now I'm finally switching over to I'm finally recording on it. But I have the microphone and the camera. I believe that if you guys want to tell, I think it sounds better when the microphone is in the camera. So my question is, are you guys okay with the microphone being in the camera? If you guys remember, in the 2020 NFL draft, 2021 NFL draft, when we drafted Bateman and when we drafted Adafe, back then, very early on in the channel, I used to actually have the microphone in the camera, and you guys said that you would prefer to have the better sound quality. But just wanted to say that once again. So if you guys are kind of annoyed at that, I'm sorry, but it does sound way better. And if I ever want to really emphasize something, I can say this. So I can say something like, I hate Greg Roman, because it's true. But let's get into the video. Let's talk about the Ravens' problems. And before we can talk about whether or not the Ravens can solve their problems, I think the biggest thing is we need to talk about what are the Ravens' problems. I mentioned we're not going to talk about fixing the roster. That is not changeable this season. There's nothing that can be done. You can't make a trade. Cutting a player won't do anything. And you can't really sign any free agents except for maybe Odell. But, according to reports, he's not going to the Ravens. So, what can the Ravens do? I think the first thing is offensive scheme, right? I think that's an issue. Another issue is, I would say, discipline, player discipline, drops, fumbles, penalties, and whether the penalties, we have some penalties delay of game penalties. That's partial scheme. That's partial player personnel. So that's kind of a combo. Miscommunications as well. And then finally, it's the blown leads, right? The blown leads, the falling apart, whether it's the offense or the defense or both. That's something that's been a theme consistently this year. So, with those in mind, let's go through them one by one. First off, coaching. Coaching / scheme. All right? The Ravens are not going to go out and fire John Harbaugh, hire Sean Payton mid-season, and go out and win the Super Bowl. Okay? I know that's something that people talk about a lot. I've mentioned it before. Yeah, I do think we should fire John Harbaugh. But at the same time, if we fire John Harbaugh, we are not going to go out and hire someone else. This is not the Colts organization. The Colts hired Jeff Saturday because they weren't going to make the playoffs. And so what they wanted to do was, kind of test out a guy. If a team like the Ravens, who's going to make the playoffs, I'm very confident in that. If a team is going to make the playoffs, they're not going to just bring some crazy new scheme and things like that. That's an off-season move. Okay, you hire an interim coach. So, would the Ravens fire John Harbaugh? Could they? Would that make much of a difference? I don't think so. I don't think, this season, that would not make a major difference this season, whether or not John Harbaugh is here. I think it's better if John Harbaugh is here for this season if we're looking at it as a whole. All right, so, with that in mind, because if we fire Harbaugh, we're going to promote someone from within. That could be Greg Roman. That could be Mike McDonald. That could be T. Martin. That could be any of the Ravens coaches. All right? That's probably not going to happen. That's not really going to change anything. The big thing is the offensive coordinator. I know a lot of people remember when the Ravens won the Super Bowl, We fired our offensive coordinator. I believe the Ravens were 9-4 when they fired their offensive coordinator in 2012. What happened after that? The Ravens were able to get hot. The Ravens were able to go on and they were able to win the Super Bowl. But let's look at it from this season. Greg Roman. If the Ravens fired Greg Roman this season, would that be able to change a lot? Because you have to remember, firing Greg Roman, right? While I think that would be great in the long term, how much schematic differences could you get? Because you are going to have someone promoted from within. I think the big name people always bring up is T. Martin. I would probably agree. I would probably want T. Martin to be the offensive coordinator in the short term. Again, there's long-term coaches that would be better suitors, okay? We would do that after this season. I do feel like that would be something that would be beneficial because Greg Roman has had significant problems, not even regarding plays. Okay, Greg Roman, here's the thing. Greg Roman has some good plays. However, this is the issue. The timing of them is terrible. One, he's always struggled with this. The 49ers with Greg Roman were one of the worst teams in the NFL with delay of games. The Buffalo Bills, I believe, were the second worst team in the NFL, and Greg Roman was their OC in terms of delay of games because he struggles to get the play out. And I don't know what that is. That could be a multitude of reasons. Maybe he's got he's got the big sheet that you see him looking at. Maybe he just takes a little bit too long to decide between plays. Whatever it is. I don't know exactly what it is, but that's a consistent theme with him. T. Martin could keep the playbook, okay? For this season, he could keep the playbook. And he could implement a couple of plays every week, Oh, here's 3 new plays. He's not going to come in, write a new playbook, and say, all right, let's go. Like maybe you would if you start over in the offseason. But I believe that because Greg Roman's problems have been consistency and going away from things that are working, maybe going away from script historically. Not just this season. That was a problem in the playoff game against the Titans. Remember, Mark Ingram goes down. Greg Roman decides we're not going to run the ball. I think that was a mistake. I think most Ravens fans would agree with me that was a mistake. So, I do believe that firing him would do something. It's a completely different question as to whether or not the Ravens will. I don't think they will. I don't think whatsoever. There's hope in my bones, but there's no actual belief. Like, I hope they do it, but I don't believe they will. So, could they fix that aspect? I think so. Not the overall coach. Like, you're not going to get rid of Harbaugh. That's not going to change anything. That's not going to do anything. If you get rid of Harbaugh, you do it at the end of the year. Okay? Firing a head coach on a team that's trying to win the Super Bowl, that's not reasonable. If the Ravens wanted to tank, you could fire him. Then you probably have to start like Tyler Huntley and not start Lamar, and then that would be a whole thing. So don't fire Harbaugh midseason. But Greg Roman, you could have Harbaugh fire him. Maybe that could fix some things. The other aspects is the discipline, right? The Marcus Peters getting cooked, Brandon Stevens getting cooked, Mark Andrews dropped a touchdown, Josh Oliver dropped a touchdown, Demarcus Robinson dropped a touchdown as well. How do you fix that? That's on the players, okay? I know so often we like to blame the coaches, we like to blame the scheme, but there are players mess up. And I think people forget that when we look at losses and we point to the biggest fish. And we say, blame him, right? When we look at, you could bring it to just anything, right? A company starts doing bad. What do? You blame the CEO, right? All these things. You blame the guy at the top. Why? Because he's the one in charge. He should be commanding the ship. But at the same time, sometimes people mess up. Maybe you're working at a small startup and you accidentally, miscount the receipts. Oh no, you lose out on some money, right? You may not be the head of the company. The head of the company may have a bad policy, but you still messed up, right? The players mess up. And they have been messing up a lot, especially with miscommunication. Miscommunication, though, I believe it was Justin Houston or JPP, they talked about how that was a problem on that last drive. A lot of miscommunications. They were not communicating properly. That's something that could potentially be fixed. Right? Right now, Chuck Clark is the green dot. Chuck Clark has been the green dot for years. Ever since Chuck Clark got the green dot, there have been significant communication issues. Roquan Smith, I believe, could take that green dot. It was very clear through all of the reports that he was very vocal when he came into camp, and he's like trying to meet everybody. He's trying to really know everything. I feel like he could be someone that, since he already plays 100% of the snaps, he could be someone with the green dot. Because that would, or maybe it's Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen's also out there 100% of the time. So having someone else out there leading the communication, I think that could fix a lot of things on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side, when it comes to the drops, the players have to play better. Okay? That is individual discipline. All right? And that's not something that I think can be fixed this year. Why? Because that's a roster issue. That's having Demarcus Robinson as your wide receiver 1. That's the issue. Okay? Yes, he's dropping passes. Demarcus Robinson isn't DeAndre Hopkins. He's not prime Larry Fitzgerald. All right? We can't go out there and expect him to play like a dominant wide receiver 1. Can he make plays? Absolutely. Do I like him on this roster? Yes. Do I like him as our wide receiver 1 with the players we have right now? Yes. But that doesn't mean we should expect elite wide receiver 1 skill. All right? He's not. He's not a wide receiver 1. He's a borderline wide receiver 3. Right? But again, he's a playmaker. But that's not something that can be fixed this year. He's not all of a sudden going to develop great hands. All right? Could he work at it, get better throughout his career? Yes. But again, this is this season. The drops are not going to be fixed this year. Okay? It's just not going to. Now, schematically, we could start reducing plays to the players that have had drops, whether it's Patrick Ricard, Josh Oliver, whatever it is. But again, this is a roster issue. That's not something that can be fixed this year. So yes, I would love to complain about the drops and the fumbles. That's individual player discipline. That's down to the roster. Okay. But again, going back, the communication I think could be fixed. I think the offensive scheme could be fixed. Those I think are probably the two of the three biggest issues, right? Offensive scheme, miscommunication on defense. Again, there's other issues, right? Individual players need to play better. But again, we can't fix that. I mean, I could go out here and say, like, you know what? Demarcus Robinson needs to stop dropping passes. That's a fix. Like that. Yeah, that's not something that Eric DeCosta, that John Harbaugh can just do, right? They can't just go out there like with fixing communication. They could go out and say, hey, Chuck Clark, we are going to switch the green dot. You're still going to play a ton, but we're going to take this green dot. We're going to put it on Roquan Smith. You're going to lead the communication. That's the Ravens franchise. That's the Ravens team doing something, not an individual player. So that's kind of my thoughts. Like, the Ravens can't fix all their problems. No team can fix all their problems. Every team has problems. The Chiefs have problems, right? The Bills have problems. The Eagles have problems. But it's all about when you're trying to win the Super Bowl, which again, the Ravens are trying to do. It's all about fixing your problems as soon as possible. And only focus on the problems that you can fix, right? Too many times Ravens fans lose, and we all, and I do it sometimes too. I'm not trying to play the blame game. I do it too. Man, I wish we had a better team, a better roster, better wide receivers, better tight ends, whatever it is, better online. Yeah, that would be nice. But at the same time, that's not something that can be fixed. Saying, hey, let's not run fullback screens on 2nd and 14, then throw that fullback out on a flat route on 3rd and 10. That's something that can be fixed. Don't do that. Stop calling that. Utilize your player personnel in ways that help the team. That's something that can be fixed. And I don't know if that's Greg Roman doing that. I think that's John Harbaugh stepping in and saying, hey, Greg, get out of here. Like, go home, man. Go back to high school football. But that's kind of it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope the audio sounds better. This is the first video that I recorded, like a test video. But this is the first full video I'm recording with almost the full new setup. I'm still yet to get the audio mixer that I have, which will be great for when Joshua and I are streaming whether it's streaming, talking Ravens football pregame, or we're also working on doing some, some gaming streams, just some overall chill streams and things like that as well, just to hang out with you guys, talk with you, whether it's about football or not, I don't know. But I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you all so much for coming through and watching, and I'll see all of you again tomorrow.